It's a big boat, Jack joked, though his eyes lingered on hers a second too long. Their moment was broken by the sound of the front door swinging open. Cindy Snow entered, with her usual chaotic energy. Cindy was a secretary with the grace of a newborn giraffe. She didn't just walk into a room, she collided with it. ¿Dónde está el museo? Cindy chirped, dropping her purse. Jack blinked. The museum? Why are you asking about the museum? I heard you studying. Cindy laughed. I thought I'd help, but honestly, Jack, I wouldn't take my clothes off there either. What? Jack asked, confused. I don't know. It just sounded like a scandal. Before Jack could defend his honor, a sharp, rhythmic pounding echoed at the door. It wasn't the friendly knock of a neighbor. It was the frantic, neurotic beat of a man in crisis. Chapter 2. The Landlord's Paranoia. Ralph Furley was a man who dressed like a kaleidoscope had exploded in a polyester factory. Tonight, he was wearing a leisure suit, the color of a bruised plum, topped with an ascot that defied the laws of fashion. Jack! Jack! You gotta help me! Furley burst in, his eyes darting around as if the walls had ears. Mr. Furley, calm down, Janet said, stepping forward. What's wrong? My brother Bart. He's a serpent, I tell you. A cold-blooded reptile in a three-piece suit. Furley paced the shag carpet. He's planted a spy in the building. He wants to find a reason to fire me, to take over the management. Jack stood up, rubbing his temples. Mr. Furley, you're being paranoid again. Who's the spy? My niece, Veronica. She's staying the weekend while Bart's out of town. Ha! Out of town. My foot. She's here to snoop, to document my every move, to report back that I'm incompetent. She's your niece, Cindy pointed out gently. Maybe she just wanted to visit her favorite uncle? Unlikely, Furley hissed. Bart's tapped my phone before. He opened my mail. He even had a detective follow me to the bowling alley. Jack sighed. Okay, so what do you want from us? Furley stopped pacing and looked Jack up and down. His expression shifted from panic to a sort of desperate appraisal. I need a young man to take her out, to keep her busy so she can't watch me. Someone popular, good-looking, fun. A real man's man. Jack straightened his posture, a small smirk playing on his lips. Well, Mr. Furley, I think I fit the bill. I like football. I drink beer. I'm not half bad at bowling. Furley let out a short, barking laugh. Jack, I don't mean you. I mean a guy who likes women. The room went silent. The joke was an old one. The central lie that allowed Jack to live with two women in a conservative building was that he was gay. It was a ruse they all maintained for the sake of the lease. But tonight, the insult stung. Jack felt a flicker of genuine irritation. Mr. Furley, Jack said, his voice dropping an octave. There are a lot of different kinds of men in the world. And you aren't any of them, Jackie boy. Furley patted his cheek condescendingly. Now, stay out of the way. I need to find a real stallion for Veronica. As Furley exited, Jack turned to the girls, his face flushed. A stallion? He thinks I'm a twerp? He thinks I'm a little nothing? He has to think that, Jack, Janet reminded him. Otherwise, we're out on the street. I know, Jack muttered. But a plan was already forming in his mind, a dangerous, hilarious, utterly Tripper-esque plan. Chapter 3. The Birth of Austin. You're going to do what? Janet asked, her eyes wide. Jack was currently rummaging through the hall closet, throwing coats and umbrellas aside. He wants a stallion? I'll give him a stallion. I'll give him a whole herd of 'em. He pulled out an old, battered Stetson hat that Cindy had used for a Halloween costume years ago. He jammed it onto his head. Jack, you can't be serious, Cindy giggled. You're going to pretend to be your own brother? Not just a brother, my twin, my identical twin brother, Austin. From Texas, Jack said, adopting a thick, honey-slow drawl. I wrestle steers, I drink my whiskey neat, and I don't take no sass from no one. Janet crossed her arms. Mr. Furley will see through you in 2 seconds. He sees what he wants to see, Jack argued. To him, Jack Tripper is a harmless, fluffy kitten. But Austin is a wolf. He stepped into the bathroom and emerged a moment later with a dark smudge on his cheek. And the only way you can tell us apart is this mole. That's eyeliner. Jack, Janet, deadpanned. In the dim light of a lounge, it's a mole. Now, Cindy, go tell Mr. Furley that Jack's brother is in town. Tell him Austin is looking for a little company. Chapter 4. The cowboy rides in. The transformation was startling. When Jack emerged from the bedroom an hour later, he wasn't Jack anymore. He wore a denim shirt unbuttoned just enough to be suggestive, the cowboy hat pulled low over his eyes, and a swagger that seemed to take up the entire room. "Well, boy howdy," he drawled, leaning against the doorframe as Mr. Furley entered with a young woman in tow. Veronica was stunning, tall, blonde, and possessing a sharp, observant gaze that made Jack's stomach do a nervous flip. "This is him?" Furley asked, his voice full of awe. "Jack's twin?" "Austin Tripper," Jack said, stepping forward and taking Veronica's hand. He didn't just shake it. He kissed the back of it, his eyes locked onto hers with a predatory intensity that Jack Tripper wouldn't have dared. "Pleased to meet you, ma'am. My eyes must be bugging out like a stomped-on toad frog. 'Cause you are the prettiest thing I've seen since the bluebonnets bloomed in Austin," Furley beamed. "You see, Veronica? A real man, a Texan." Veronica smiled, a slow, playful curve of the lips. "A cowboy in Santa Monica? How exotic. We're closer than two ticks on a dog's tail, me and my brother Jack." Jack continued, ignoring Janet's muffled snort from the kitchen. "Though he's a bit of a twerp, if I'm being honest. A real cream puff." "Oh, I don't know," Veronica said, her voice dropping to a husky whisper. "I've always had a soft spot for cream puffs. But a cowboy, that's a new frontier." The night began as a game, but as Jack now Austin led Veronica to the sofa, the stakes began to change. He found himself telling stories of imaginary ranches and long nights under the stars. He found himself looking at Veronica and seeing not a spy, but a woman who looked bored of her father's games. And from the kitchen, Janet would watch them. She watched the way Jack leaned in, the way he laughed that deep, fake Texan laugh, and she realized with a jolt of jealousy that she liked the wolf much more than she should. Chapter 5. The Fog and the Fire. The evening took a turn for the chaotic when a thick, Pacific fog rolled in, blanketing the city in a white, impenetrable shroud. "Airport's closed," Furley announced, returning from a quick trip to his own apartment with a bottle of bourbon. "Austin, you aren't going anywhere tonight. Looks like we've got ourselves a party." The tiny apartment felt smaller by the minute. Jack was trapped. He had to be Austin for Furley and Veronica, but he had to be Jack for the phone call he was expecting regarding the restaurant job. He spent the next 2 hours in a frantic blur. He would go to the kitchen as Austin, wash off the mole, discard the hat, and emerge as Jack to answer the phone or talk to Janet. Then, he would reverse the process, re-smudging the mole and reclaiming the drawl. "Where's Jack?" Furley asked, leaning back on the sofa, 3 drinks in. "He's, studying," Cindy shouted from the kitchen. "Spanish. Very intense." "Let's have a toast," Furley insisted. "To friendship, to the Tripper brothers. Austin, get your brother out here." Jack felt a cold sweat break out. "Oh, he's in the little Wrangler's room, Mr. Furley. Got a bit of a touch of the stomach flu. You know how it is." "Nonsense. A drink will cure him." The pressure was mounting. Janet tried to intervene, dancing with Furley to distract him, but the landlord was determined. He wanted to see the 2 brothers together. In a moment of desperation, Jack ducked into the bedroom and grabbed a pillow, stuffing it into a spare set of clothes and propping it up in the shadows of the hallway. "There he is," Jack shouted, pointing to the dark silhouette. "He's just resting his eyes. Poor fella." But Veronica wasn't looking at the silhouette. She was looking at Jack. She had seen him wipe the mole off his face earlier. She had seen the hat hidden behind the sofa. She leaned in close to his ear, her breath warm against his neck. "You know, Jack, or Austin, whoever you are." Jack froze her. "I think you're a much better actor than you are a cowboy," she whispered. "But the effort, that's what's really romantic." Before Jack could respond, Furley let out a celebratory yell. "I love this family. I love the Trippers." He grabbed Austin and Jack, the pillow, for a group hug, stumbling in his drunken haze. Chapter 6. The Morning After. The fog cleared by dawn, leaving the apartment smelling of stale bourbon and deception. Veronica had left a note on the coffee table. Uncle Ralph is convinced. My father will be happy. And I'll keep your secret, cowboy.